Greetings, you are listening to The Heartful Technologist. I'm CK Hicks. Today, I have a brief thought for you regarding when you do your best creative work. Your best work in general, really, or broadly, maybe. When do you find yourself most productive? And when do you find yourself inspired to do your work? Regardless of the area that you work in, or whether you work by yourself or with others, when do you find yourself at your best? Now, for me personally, I think it's been a long journey of trying to learn this, and for decades I have been the night owl of my friends group, definitely the one who was expected to be up late doing things and dabbling and fixing things and stuff like that. And some of it's the nature of my work, and other of it is because that's when I had quiet time. That's when I would be able to get ideas or to implement something and research and so forth, and do that in my own space and at my own pace, as it were. But after I've had several children, and the nights are somewhat fungible, and sometimes you don't have the margin you think you do because you get an interruption or something, I've started to realize that doing the work late at night, especially, really like in the wee hours of the morning, is not scalable, nor is it actually more productive. And I know anyone who knows me from any years past will say, wow, this is a different CK than we know, but hear me out, because I think that it's actually, it's not a novel realization, but it is something that has taken me a long time to admit, is that, maybe I'm not at my best late at night. Maybe I don't do my best work when it's the 11th hour or the 13th hour, whatever. And I think a lot of times I convinced myself that was when I was most productive because I had to get it done. I knew this was the moment that I had where no distractions, no excuses, and, the deadline was coming, or it was just by nature of whatever I was working on, it had to get done. And I think that there is a time and place for that. Sometimes that's unavoidable. Sometimes we can't control often can't control the circumstances that surround a deadline or something else. But again, as I've gotten older, I've had some children, lived life, and just seen different ways of working, I'm finding, and this is maybe the main point of this so far, is I need to be more creative during the day. I'm more creative during the day. I have interesting ideas, as I start to get tired and everything, but that's not when I'm at my best. That might be when I have the fewest inhibitions, where the sleepy brain starts to creep in and anything seems possible, But that's not when I'm doing my best work. That's just when I think anything could happen or anything is possible. And that is not a scalable way to be, because then when you look at that in the daylight and you're trying to decipher your notes or whatever it might be, you realize that there were problems, or, oh, okay, well, it was a little far-fetched, or, oh, yeah, in the perfect scenario, CK, that might have worked. But it's not something that you can identify clearly in that moment because you're not at your best. You don't have the input of others, or even if you were to sequester yourself to come up with an idea or something like that and then bring it to someone else for review, that's not something you could even do at that moment. So you feel validated by having done some of the work, but you're not actually accomplishing the work. You're just setting things in motion, right? And maybe this is too personal to me. Maybe this has nothing to do with you at all. And I appreciate you listening to my rambling if that's true. But I think if you're in any kind of knowledge work, technology, or anything like that, or even if you're a writer or you have something that you do that doesn't necessarily require that it be done in parallel with someone else, you're not cooking food for people to eat who just ordered it, right? Something like that. Then I think for a lot of us, we can fall into this trap of, or maybe not a trap, we can fall into the illusion maybe, or the allure even, of wanting to do it late, to push it into the night hours, and to feel as though that is when we can like unlock real productivity or ideas or whatever, or put in a long editing session, or something like that. And I think there's a time and place for it, but it shouldn't be it has been too often for me, that has been my crutch or my escape hatch. I've always known I can tap into this kind of crazy energy that I can get as I don't go to bed. I instead kick back into gear, and I can blast into the wee hours and at this crazy speed and get a lot done. And sometimes, like I said, that has had to happen. But I think as I get older, I know that what I need to be doing more is being creative during the day, is to bring the focus, the energy, the accountability, and all of that into the sunlight. Because not only is sunlight a great disinfectant, it also has the benefits of being able to have that work be when you're sharp, and to be able to look at some of those concepts or whatever it is you're working on and think, this might be something, or it might not be, but I can at least refine it and hone it when I can see it really well. And then I can set it aside, and I can always revisit it later tonight if I wanted to think about it some more or develop it further or whatever. But the main work on this work can happen during the day, and that's okay. And if you can organize your life in a way, and this is something that I think a lot about, if it were possible to organize life in a way where your best and most creative work was happening during the day, like for people who are working in parallel with others, right? People working on a film set, or again, in a kitchen or something, where your best example of your work, your greatest and finest output has to be done when the most people are present and watching. And that's just so different from me, who spent so many years as a software developer and things like that. And it's just I don't know, it's kind of something I've always wondered, like, what would that be like, to have, even as I've worked in agencies and other situations where I've been, right next to someone else, we're working on something during the day. A lot of times I've found myself in these situations where, whether it be a photo dark room or a development, environment or whatever, a lot of times I'm working on it after everyone else is gone. And I think that it's just it's something to be aware of. Maybe not to, I don't know, maybe it's not concerning, maybe it's not something that you have to worry about at all. But for me, as I continue to grow older, as I continue to have less say about what happens in my time, especially in those hours that are sometimes just a little more tumultuous with young children, or something happens and you don't get the margin you thought you had. Looking for ways to design life so that you can build in the margin that you would like to have and build in the accountability that you would like to have has to just happen when you can accept that or expect it from others, right? And I think that for me is a big way forward. It's something that is forcing me to think about creative projects differently, about new ideas differently, and even about chasing things that I may have already started or had the idea over a few evening coding sessions or whatever. But then to say, okay, well, what would it look like though to create a life, create time, create opportunities when I could really give this some focus, when I could really put myself into this. And this is tough because sometimes these things have nothing to do with your day job or with something that may even make money, that might be pure passion projects, right? But I think if we invest time during the day, when we invest our best hours, our truly best hours, the days where we can, we are forcing ourselves to not be distracted, and we're forcing ourselves to say, no, this is important, and I do have other things to do, so I'm gonna give this space, but it's costly. I think, I'm postulating a little bit here, but I think it will actually turn out to be way, way more valuable than we realize. And that the time and effort that we put into that, even if it's small little bites over the course of time, I think the quality is going to be higher. And so this is something I'm testing for myself. This is something that I'm going to try and do and again, kind of build into my life as much as I can, while also maintaining responsibilities and everything else where in other areas of life. I want to start being more creative during the day. And I want to start making things in the sunlight and in the time of day when I could actually show it to somebody and say, what do you think of this? Or am I headed in the right direction? And it's not like the manic scribbles on a yellow pad kind of thing, which is fine too. But anyway, those are some brief thoughts about this for me. Be creative during the day. And I would love to hear if you had thoughts on this. Feel free to reach out anywhere I am on social, or you can email me at podcast@ckhicks.com if you have any feedback. But I'm going to be trying this, and maybe I'll report back at some point. Hopefully that was helpful and or encouraging. I just want to thank you for your time and your attention, and I'll talk to you soon.